Most investors are told to stay calm, think long-term, buy and hold, and eventually, everything will work out. That's the story. But what if I told you that's not how the ultra-wealthy invest? At least not in the way you've been taught. Ray Dalio, one of the most successful investors in history, didn't just play the market. He decoded it. He created a set of principles so powerful his hedge fund didn't just survive the biggest financial crashes, it profited from them. And today, we're going to walk through the principles the rich live by, but you were never told. In 2008, as global markets collapsed and panic spread like wildfire, Ray Dalio's fund made billions. While other investors were scrambling, frozen, or wiped out, Bridgewater was quietly positioned, hedged, prepared, calm. It wasn't luck. It wasn't timing. It was a system, forged through pain. Because decades earlier, Dalio had lost everything. In 1982, he bet big against the market, and he was wrong. Publicly. He had to lay off all his employees. He was broke. And he had to borrow $4,000 from his dad just to cover bills. But here's the key. He didn't blame the world. He blamed his thinking. And from that rock bottom, he built something different. Instead of guessing next time, he wrote down his logic, his failures, his reflections, and those turned into principles. Battle-tested rules that grew into one of the most powerful investing machines the world has ever seen. If you're tired of watered-down advice and want to understand how the ultra-wealthy actually make investing decisions, not what they say on camera, but what they do, hit that subscribe button. This video is called Ray Dalio's Investing Principles the Rich Live By, but You Were Never Told. And by the end, you won't just think differently about investing, you'll invest differently. Let's kick things off with a hard truth. Investing without principles is gambling. There's a dangerous pattern you'll see over and over again. Smart people, hardworking people, even financially literate people losing money in the markets. And it's not because they're dumb, it's because they don't have principles. They have opinions, gut feelings, hunches, maybe a few things they picked up from YouTube or a podcast. But what they don't have is a framework. And that's the silent difference between amateur investing and strategic wealth building. Ray Dalio doesn't play the market. He doesn't bet. He doesn't guess. Every move he makes is based on a set of principles that were written before the emotions kicked in. And this is where most people go wrong. They start investing without a system, without a map, without a set of rules to navigate chaos. So when volatility shows up, and it always does, they panic. They overreact. Or worse, they freeze. Imagine trying to fly a plane through a storm without instruments. That's what most portfolios look like. Emotion-led, noise-filled, reactionary messes. Dalio knew better. After getting burned, he decided his decisions had to be built on logic, not feelings. He turned investing into an operating system, and that shift changed everything. So here's the harsh truth. If you're investing without principles, you're not investing. You're gambling. And the house always wins, unless you start playing with a different set of rules. Now let's talk about the first major principle Dalio lives by. One that sounds simple but cuts deeper than most people ever realize. Know what you don't know. This might be the most overlooked rule in all of investing, and also the one that saves the most money. Know what you don't know. Sounds humble, but in practice, it's brutal, because it forces you to admit that your instincts, your predictions, and your confidence might all be lying to you. Ray Dalio once said, "The biggest mistake investors make is to believe that what happened in the recent past is likely to persist." That one sentence, it destroys most people's portfolios. We see something go up for a few weeks and assume it's the future, or we see a crash and assume it's the end. But Dalio knew better. He realized the market doesn't care what you feel. It responds to cycles, probabilities, and economic patterns that most people never even notice. And here's the psychological trap. The more confident you feel, the more blind you usually are. Dalio's strength wasn't that he knew more. It was that he assumed he could be wrong, constantly, and built systems to protect himself from that. He studied history obsessively. He stress-tested his ideas. He surrounded himself with people who would challenge his thinking, because he knew that ego kills performance. Meanwhile, most people chase narratives. They hear something that sounds smart and run with it. But investing isn't about sounding smart. It's about not being stupid. Now that you understand how humility becomes a weapon, let's move on to one of Dalio's most powerful tools, and one most investors use completely wrong. The power of diversification, but not the way you think. Most people think they understand diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, they say, so they split their money between a few stocks, maybe a mutual fund, throw in some bonds, and call it a day. But Ray Dalio would look at that and shake his head. Because true diversification isn't about what you own. It's about what those assets do in different environments. That's the part most people miss. Dalio's all-weather portfolio isn't just a mix of asset classes. It's a mix of economic behaviors. He designs portfolios that perform across multiple scenarios: inflation, deflation, growth, stagnation. That's why he calls it all-weather. It's meant to survive storms, not just sunny skies. And the way he builds it is radically different from the typical 60-40 split you hear about on financial TV. He doesn't just ask, "What assets should I own?" He asks, "What's the economic machine doing? And how will each asset respond to that machine changing?" It's a completely different lens. And here's the genius of it. You don't have to predict the future if you're prepared for all versions of it. That's the magic of this kind of diversification. Now, retail investors rarely think this way. They're looking at charts, trying to time moves, guessing direction. But what if instead you could build a portfolio that made guessing irrelevant? By the way, if you're enjoying the video so far and want more topics like this, comment the word "more" so I know. Now let's switch gears and look at something that destroys most portfolio. Not market crashes, but human reactions. And Dalio's approach here might save you more money than anything else. This is the part no one wants to admit. But it's the part that quietly ruins most people's wealth. It's not that their investments are bad. It's that they are. Not because they're stupid, but because they're emotional. And when emotions enter the equation, logic exits the room. Dalio learned this the hard way. In his early career, he made bold calls based on confidence and got crushed. But he didn't just take the hit and move on. He studied it. He realized that the average investor loses not because of bad markets, but because they panic during volatility. The market drops 10%, and suddenly the plan's out the window. They sell low, buy back high, spiral, repeat. But Dalio took a different route. He built systems that pre-decide what to do when markets shift. He scripts his reactions in advance so he doesn't have to trust his instincts in the moment, because he knows those instincts are flawed. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people know they shouldn't panic, until they do. And once that spiral begins, logic doesn't stand a chance. That's why Dalio talks about decision rules, predetermined steps that trigger based on conditions, not feelings. It's how he stayed calm while the world melted down in 2008. It wasn't Zen, it was planning. If you want to invest like the rich, don't just study what they buy, study how they stay rational when everyone else loses their mind. Now that you understand the power of scripting your reactions, let's move into one of Dalio's most powerful mindset shifts, where he stops guessing the future and starts preparing for it. Most investors are secretly trying to do the same thing, predict the future. They analyze charts, follow trends, watch the news, and try to spot what's coming next. But Ray Dalio doesn't play that game. He doesn't waste time trying to be a prophet because he knows the market doesn't reward accuracy, it rewards preparation. Dalio once said, "He who lives by the crystal ball is destined to eat ground glass." That might sound dramatic, but it's painfully accurate. The truth is, no one can predict exactly when markets will crash, when rates will rise, or when sentiment will flip. Not consistently, not reliably. So Dalio flips the question. Instead of asking what will happen, he asks, what will I do if it happens? That one mental shift, from prediction to principle, is what separates amateurs from the elite, and it's why he focuses on decision rules and economic cause and effect models. He builds playbooks, not predictions. Because in a chaotic world, it's not about being right, it's about being ready. Most people chase hot stocks and market calls. But the rich, they build systems that work in multiple scenarios. They don't care about being early or trendy, they care about being resilient, because resilience, not brilliance, is what builds real wealth over decades. Now that we've explored the power of preparation over prediction, let's dive into something special. It's the one part of this video that goes beyond theory and gives you a tool you can actually start using today. Ray Dalio didn't just build wealth, he built a machine, a mental engine that could think better than his emotions. Most people hear investing system and imagine something complicated or robotic. But for Dalio, a system is simply a set of principles that turn chaos into clarity. That's the key. Not predicting what the market will do, but designing a system that helps you respond to anything it throws at you. Bridgewater, his hedge fund, operates like a decision-making machine, not because it's filled with robots, but because it's built on transparency, reflection, and constant improvement. If something fails, Dalio doesn't just feel bad, he documents it. He refines the process. And that feedback loop, that's how the system evolves. But here's where this gets real. You don't need to run a billion-dollar fund to do the same. You just need a dashboard, a command center, for your financial life. And that's what I'm testing right now. I'm building a Google Sheets command center, something simple but powerful. It'll help you track your net worth, investments, income, cash flow, spending habits, and even your compounding progress, all in one place. It's not just a tracker, it's a strategy hub, the kind of thing I wish someone had handed me 10 years ago. If enough people want it, I'll launch it soon. And exclusive launch discount only for early supporters. Join the early access list waitlist below. The tool will cost less than one bad financial decision, and that's the point. Now, let's switch gears. Because Dalio's final insight isn't about spreadsheets or stocks. It's about the mindset that drives it all. At this point, you might be thinking it's all about frameworks, principles, and systems. And yes, those are critical. But there's one element behind all of it that even most smart investors miss. Ray Dalio calls it radical self-reflection, because before you can master the markets, you have to master yourself. See, Dalio didn't get rich by being perfect. He got rich by being brutally honest with himself. After he lost everything early in his career, he realized that his biggest enemy wasn't inflation or interest rates. It was his own thinking, his biases, his blind spots, his ego. And that realization, it led to a complete rewiring of how he made decisions. Most people think investing is about knowing more, but the rich understand it's about thinking better. And thinking better starts with questioning your own assumptions. Dalio didn't just build an investment machine. He built a self-improvement machine. He wrote down what went wrong, asked why it went wrong, and turned pain into process. And this is the part no one wants to hear. You can't build wealth if you're still a slave to your emotions. You'll overreact, overtrade, overextend. The system you build is only as good as the thinker behind it. That's why Dalio's real principle wasn't just financial, it was personal. He didn't just manage money, he managed himself. Now let's bring it all together, because this final lesson ties every piece into one clear philosophy that can change your entire approach to wealth. If there's one thing Ray Dalio's journey makes clear, it's this. Wealth isn't built on noise, predictions, or personality. It's built on clarity, on frameworks, on thinking clearly when everyone else is reacting. And that doesn't come from talent. It comes from principles. Let's step back. Most people invest like gamblers. They chase headlines, get seduced by trends, and panic in volatility. But Dalio saw through all of it. After being humbled early in his career, he built a personal machine, a system of rules and reflection that didn't just protect him from bad decisions. It multiplied his edge over time. We started this video by asking what the rich know that you were never told. Now you know. They don't bet on outcomes. They prepare for possibilities. They don't trust instincts. They test them. They don't follow the noise. They build filters. These aren't just tips. They're mindset shifts. And when Dalio says principles, he doesn't mean lofty quotes. He means actionable beliefs tested against reality. That's what the wealthy actually live by. And now that you've seen it, you can live by them too. This video was titled, Ray Dalio's Investing Principles the Rich Live By, But You Were Never Told. But now you have been told. The only question is what you'll do next. Will you guess, or will you build? Because at the end of the day, the difference between struggling investors and strategic wealth builders isn't intelligence, it's design. Let's wrap with the final message, and a next step that'll help you put this into practice, not just your notes. And there you have it. This was Ray Dalio's Investing Principles and the Rules the Rich Live By, But You Were Never Told. And it's just the beginning. Remember, this video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice. It is important to conduct thorough research and consult with financial professionals before making any investment decisions. The value of investments can fluctuate, and past performance is not indicative of future results. Always assess your risk tolerance and investment goals before allocating your capital. If you found value today, I highly recommend watching my next video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Also, feel free to leave your comment below, especially if this video made you think differently. I appreciate your support more than you know. Until next time, stay consistent, stay patient, and stay winning. See you in the next one, Money Magician.